Today, the bank robbery story that I'm going to tell you is about two thieves who, to rob a bank, neither used any tunnel nor looted this bank after it was closed. Instead, these two thieves entered the bank in broad daylight, and by firing at people, looted the bank. This robbery was the very first in the city of Richmond, Virginia, where people were killed during a bank heist, something that shook the entire state of Virginia. This story is about a robbery that in the blink of an eye turned into a shootout in which many bank workers lost their lives. It still could not stop the robbery. The most shocking part was that when this robbery was taking place to police, officers were just 80 meters away from the bank, yet they could not catch the thieves. And by the time they reached the bank after hearing the sound of gunshots, it was already too late. So how exactly did these thieves execute this terrifying robbery? Who were the people that died during this heist? And did the police ever manage to catch these thieves? This in itself is a very shocking and thrilling story. The story begins on January 30th, 1997, when in the city of Richmond, Virginia, all the employees of a bank were starting their work in the morning. At that time, a total of 4 people were present in the bank. The first was Christine Edward, 23-year-old cashier who had arrived a little early to prepare before customers came in. Christine's colleague, who was 21 years old, was already present in the bank and was preparing all the cash drawers so that everything would be ready before customers started arriving. The third employee present was Alice David, whose job was to solve any customer queries in the bank. And the fourth and last employee at that time was the bank's security guard, Richard Hartman. Richard was moving around inside the bank, carefully checking everything to ensure there was no problem and everything remained safe. By now, the bank had been open for more than an hour when a regular customer named Stephen Reed entered the bank. As soon as he walked in, he and the guard exchanged a good morning, after which Stephen moved towards the cash counter. At that moment, 2 more men entered the bank. They looked just like normal customers, but none of the people inside had the slightest clue that these 2 were about to rob the bank in a very violent way. One of them was named LaFawn Bobbitt, and the other was Rashi Jones. Both had hidden weapons with them when they entered the bank. Slowly, and all the bank employees got busy with their work. Then suddenly, Bobbitt reached the cash counter and told Christine that he wanted to open an account. As soon as Christine turned around to get him an account opening form, he immediately pulled out a gun and pointed it at her head. He ordered everyone present to lie face down on the floor. Seeing this, Christine's colleague Alice screamed loudly, after which Bobbitt fired into the air and shouted that if anyone moved, he would shoot them. The sound of gunfire echoed through the entire bank and even outside. Now Bobbitt's partner, Rashi Jones, also started yelling loudly, ordering everyone to lie down on the ground. All the people present in the bank began screaming and panicking out of fear. Christine and Alice could not believe that 2 armed robbers had stormed their bank. Meanwhile, security guard Richard tried to protect Christine and Alice by moving towards them. Bobbitt immediately fired at him. At that time, it's just 80 meters away from the bank. 2 police officers, Michael Webb and Dave Martin, were sitting in their police car, drinking coffee. Because the bank was not far from them, they heard the sound of gunfire. Shocked, they quickly drove towards the bank. When they reached outside, they saw that security guard Richard Hartman was lying face down on the ground. Although he was alive, he was badly injured from the gunshot. One officer quickly grabbed his walkie-talkie and shouted that a man had been shot and they needed backup immediately. The other officer rushed towards the guard to check his condition, so that he could be taken to the hospital as soon as possible. Inside the bank, the thieves once again fired shots to demand money. But this time their bullet hit Christine. Even though she pleaded with them not to shoot her, they ignored her and pulled the trigger. Alice, hiding under her desk, witnessed the entire scene. When she saw Christine being shot, she fainted out of fear and shock, hearing the sound of Christine being shot. Officer Michael Webb took cover behind their car with his gun ready, prepared to shoot at the robbers if needed. Michael knew very well that these thieves were heavily armed and would go to any extent to loot the bank. There was also the danger that one of them might reach their car, so he remained fully alert with his weapon. Officer Martin was equally alert and prepared. Suddenly, a bullet struck their police car. Both officers realized the thieves were firing at them. But this was part of the thieves' plan. The plan was that Rashi Jones would fire at the officers to distract them while Bobbitt filled the bags with cash. After stuffing all the cash into bags, Bobbitt called out to Rashi. He returned inside through the gate, then both escaped with the money through another route. After fleeing the bank, the two robbers ran towards a cemetery, leaving both the bank employees and the police officers in a state of chaos. Meanwhile, Officer Martin again called through his walkie-talkie, giving descriptions of the two robbers and requesting urgent backup. Within minutes, many more police units from the Henrico County Police Department arrived outside the bank and surrounded the area from all sides. Officers Michael Webb and Dave Martin, along with two more officers, entered the bank and began clearing each room one by one, making sure no more robbers or threats were inside. At that moment, Officer Martin spotted Christine lying on the ground with no movement in her body. Seeing this, Alice began crying loudly. When Officer Michael looked under the desk, he saw Alice sitting there, completely terrified and in shock. It didn't take long for the police to realize that this was not an ordinary robbery, but a shootout. Robbery in which weapons were used openly. For the bank employees, this was a nightmare they would never forget. As the chaos inside the bank slowly settled, new revelations started coming to light. Police began collecting evidence from the crime scene to track down the robbers as quickly as possible. They thoroughly searched every corner of the bank for clues like DNA or fingerprints. The first evidence they found were empty bullet shells scattered on the floor after the firing. From these shells, police discovered that the bullets had been fired from a 9mm semi-automatic pistol. The way the shells were lying also suggested that the gun might have jammed while firing. All the shells and bullets were sent to the forensic lab. Meanwhile, one officer noticed a bag left behind the cash counter. When the police opened it, they were shocked. Inside the bag, they found a matchbox, a green tablecloth, a bottle of charcoal fruit drink, and a note that read, "Please wait for 5 minutes." After discovering this, police began to understand that it was found that after committing the robbery, both thieves were about to kill the people inside the bank and set the bank on fire. After this revelation, police became even more alert and now started investigating the case from another angle. Meanwhile, the forensic team discovered the shoe prints of the robbers on the cashier counter, and the police collected these footprints as evidence so that they could match them later with the suspect's shoes. The police were examining even the smallest of evidence very carefully because they wanted to build a strong case against Bob and Jones. To help solve this case, they included FBI agent Wayne Waddell. As soon as Agent Wayne took charge of the case, he first began checking the CCTV footage recorded on the bank's cameras. But during the checking, there was an error. The recorded videos were jumping from one camera angle to another, due to which it was not clear what exactly happened at what time. While the police were still continuing their investigation, they received another piece of news that might have been connected to the case. Police learned that a robbery had taken place in a house not very far from the bank, on the same route that Bob and Rashi had taken to escape, where the police were working day and night to solve this case. They were also facing a lot of trouble in getting witnesses and evidence. All the witnesses who were present in the bank at that time were in such deep shock that whenever police questioned them, they could not provide any detailed information. All of them said the same thing. That they were too terrified, and everything happened so quickly that they remembered nothing. Then the police decided that they would question those victims in the UA hospital who were injured during the firing. When the police reached the hospital, they learned that both Christine and Alice were in surgery, and it was not possible to question them. Among the injured was Stephen Reed, the oldest customer of the bank who had been the first to arrive that day. Although the bullet had struck his shoulder, he was of no help to the police because he was suffering from memory loss. That was the reason. He could not give any proper details about the robbery. The case was becoming more and more complicated for the police. and they realized they would have to face many difficulties in solving it. They decided to form different teams that would work on the case from different angles. Meanwhile, police turned their attention to that house robbery, which had taken place. On the escape route of the two robbers, the woman living in that house told the police that her door had been forcibly broken, and after that, her clothes and valuables had been stolen. She also told the police that when the robbery took place, she had gone out for some work. When police reached the crime scene, they saw that the ceiling of her house had a hole. This led the police to suspect that perhaps the two bank robbers had hidden in the ceiling of this house after the robbery, and when they found the chance, they committed another theft in the house and fled from there. The woman and her boyfriend were in great shock that their house had been targeted, but when the police informed them that only a few days earlier a bank nearby had also been robbed, the boyfriend's facial expression suddenly changed. During interrogation, one officer also noticed that whenever the police questioned this woman and her boyfriend, the boyfriend became very nervous. This made the police suspicious that perhaps this man was also somehow involved in the bank robbery. Meanwhile, FBI agent Wayne and the police team began re-examining all the evidence collected from the crime scene to determine who had been inside the bank before the robbery began. They discovered that at that time there were 2 cashiers, 1 customer, attendant, 1 security guard, 1 customer, and 2 other men inside. As soon as one of those 2 distracted the guard, the other immediately pulled out his gun, went straight to the cash counter. The biggest question troubling the police was, how did 2 armed men enter the bank when the security guard was patrolling with a gun in his hand? But when they checked the CCTV footage, they understood it was because one man distracted the guard and pointed a gun at his head, while the other held a gun to the cashier and looted all the money. The police also found a hole behind the cashier desk caused by a gunshot, which clearly showed that the 2 robbers not only wanted to loot money, but also to kill people. Bullets were also found lying on the floor, which suggested to the police that one robber's gun might have jammed while firing. According to the photos taken at the crime scene, the police discovered that the robbers had 2 different weapons, one a .380 pistol and the other a machine gun. At first, the security guard had been shot at with the .380 ACP pistol, but when that jammed, the AR-15 machine gun was used for firing. Meanwhile, an eyewitness gave the police a new detail. He told them that one customer had tried to run outside the bank, but one robber chased him, caught him, and shot him in the shoulder. That customer was none other than Stephen Reed. The witness also said that the security guard had tried very hard to stop the robbers but failed against their heavy gunfire. After shooting the guard, one robber quickly started stuffing cash into bags while the other distracted the police outside. Once the bags were filled, the second robber came back inside, and the 2 were about to escape through another gate when the injured guard tried once more to stop them. This time the robbers lost their temper, shot him in the head. It was now very clear that the 2 robbers wanted to kill everyone inside, so that no witnesses would remain alive, and they would never be caught. The thing that shocked the police most was the lighter fluid found inside the bag, which suggested that after escaping, the robbers were planning to set the entire bank on fire. The police now understood just how dangerous these 2 were, and before they could commit another robbery, police wanted to capture them at any cost. Then, the police got the lead that completely changed the course of the investigation. From the bullets collected, police traced the weapons used. Upon investigating those weapons, one name came forward: Jermaine Sims. Jermaine was the man who had purchased the weapons used in the robbery. The police took him into custody. At first, he denied buying any weapons or having anything to do with the robbery, but as the investigation progressed and more evidence piled up against him, he broke down. After spending a week in jail, he agreed to cooperate with the police. Then he made a shocking revelation. Jermaine told the police that he knew about the robbery and that he had supplied the weapons to Laffin, Bobbitt, and Rashi Jones. Hearing this, the police's eyes lit up. After Jermaine's statement, the police now knew the exact names of the 2 men who had carried out the robbery, and they launched a hunt to capture Bobbitt and Rashi. There was a criminal background which increased the trouble for the police even more, or many cases of assault were registered against Babette at the same time. Many complaints of petty thefts were filed against Rashi when the police investigated. Both of them more closely, they came to know that these two could go to any extent to commit robbery, and they used to execute every crime with full planning. After finding the connection between Germain and the two thieves, when the police investigated the weapons, they came to know that the weapons were stolen. After this, the police began preparing to file charges against all three. But before that, they needed to arrest Bob and Rashi as soon as possible, because they were afraid that these two might attack somewhere else again. However, Germain was already caught by the police, and he had confessed to his crime. But the police wanted to gather as much evidence as possible, so that they could prove the link of Germain and the two thieves, and also prove that it was indeed these thieves who were behind the loot. And after conviction, they would never get bail. The police were unaware that during the investigation of the link between Germain and the two thieves, many shocking twists in their plans would come in front of them. Because these thieves had killed many people during this loot, the police were more focused on catching them rather than just solving the case. That is why they used third-degree interrogation on Germain. But he did not know where the two had disappeared after committing the robbery. The police then decided that instead of catching the two thieves together, they would catch them one by one. The first name on their list was Babette. Now, the police started keeping an eye on Babette's old area where he no longer lived. But they were hopeful that perhaps Babette might fall into their hands. Just a few days after surveillance began, the police got their second success. They spotted Bob boarding a bus. Seeing this, the police immediately called the backup team and started chasing the bus. As soon as the bus stopped at the next station, police arrested Babette and took him into custody for questioning. Now, people related to this loot had already fallen into the police's hands. When the police strictly interrogated Bob, he told them about the evidence that directly linked him to the robbery. Based on Bob's statement, the police started searching his house. In this search, they found the clothes that he had worn on the day of the robbery, as well as the weapons that had been used in the loot. From these pieces of evidence, it became very clear that Bob was involved in the robbery. Now, the last remaining task in front of them was to catch Rashi Jones. Although the police tried hard to get Bob to tell them where Rashi Jones was, he said that after taking his share, Rashi went somewhere, but he did not know where. Even though the arrest of Babette did not reveal Rashi's location, he did give the police a photo of Rashi. Using this photo, the police engaged their informers. Just a week after Babette's arrest, the police got information from their informant that Rashi Jones was circulating stolen banknotes in different shops. He also told the police that these were the same notes, with the secret bank mark on them, which I will tell you about later. This news confirmed to the police that Rashi Jones was still in the same area, and not far from their reach. Rashi Jones was the last link in this entire case, and once he was caught, the case would be closed. That is why the police wanted to arrest him as soon as possible. The police divided their entire team into different groups and placed them outside local stores so that as soon as Rashi Jones came to shop in any store, they could arrest him. Meanwhile, the police received news that Rashi Jones was hiding in a building apartment located in a posh area. The police thought that if they suddenly went to arrest him, he might not be there, or he might escape before they arrived. So they told their informants to keep an eye on him and his routine, while also instructing the entire SWAT team to stay fully prepared and alert. Finally, when the police got confirmed news that Rashi Jones was inside his apartment, they quietly surrounded the building with the SWAT team. SWAT team silently entered the building. Led by FBI agent Wayne, he made sure that Rashi Jones did not get even the slightest hint, because he had weapons. Maybe a little suspicion could make him open fire. When they reached the door, the FBI agent knocked and asked Jones to come out, but there was no response from inside. Then he instructed the SWAT team to break the door. As soon as they broke in, Rashi Jones was sitting right in front of them. The most surprising thing was that there was no weapon in his hand. What shocked the police most was that Rashi Jones surrendered without saying anything. In this search, they found a pair of shoes. When the police matched these shoes with the footprints found in the bank, they matched perfectly. This was a very big piece of evidence that proved Rashid Jones was involved in the robbery. This was enough to build a strong case against him. Because in this bank robbery, cashier Christine Edward and security guard Hartman had lost their lives. The public was very angry, and the pressure on the police to close the case quickly was increasing. However, there was no such witness who could fully identify the two thieves. That's why the police were facing trouble in the legal proceedings. Christopher Reed, who had been shot in the shoulder, could not remember the faces of the two thieves because of trauma, and the rest of the people were either lying face down on the floor or hiding under desks out of fear, so they couldn't see the faces properly either. The police wanted some witness who could identify the two in court so that their case would become stronger, but this wasn't happening. Now, the police lawyer had to prove in court that Bob and Jones were in the bank during the robbery. Without any witness, only with circumstantial evidence like guns and footprints. At this time, the police got an idea. They decided to present Jermaine, the one who had supplied the guns to Bob and Jones, as a witness in court. But during the hearing, a new problem arose. Jermaine turned hostile and said that he had nothing to do with the robbery. Still, the police lawyer succeeded in proving that he had indeed supplied the weapons to the two thieves. The police had documented every single piece of evidence in detail, including bullet shells and shoe footprints. The lawyer then presented the ballistic report in court, which proved that the bullets fired in the bank were from the same guns recovered after their arrest. The fingerprints found on these guns also matched them. The clothes they wore during the robbery were also recovered. The last piece of evidence presented in court was the footprints found at the cash counter, which matched the shoes recovered from Rashid Jones. This was a very strong piece of evidence that proved Jones' involvement. The lawyer also presented in court the testimony of the two police officers who had reached the bank after hearing gunshots and who had called for backup via walkie-talkie. They testified about how the thieves had created havoc in the bank, shooting people one after the other, and how they tried to stop them, but the two escaped. During the hearing, another piece of evidence came into the hands of the police. The dye packs placed inside bundles of banknotes. These packs burst when stolen, spilling dye onto the notes. Banks use this system so that stolen notes become unusable, and if someone tries to spend them, the dye reveals they are stolen. These thieves made the same mistake. In their hurry to fill the bag with bundles of notes, they didn't realize there were dye packs inside. Just a little while after they fled, the dye packs burst. It was because of these stained notes that the police tracked down the stores where Bob and Jones had tried to spend the money. When they investigated these stores, police got hold of CCTV footage clearly showing the two trying to spend the notes. This was a very big piece of evidence, the final nail in their coffin. On the other hand, Bob and Jones' lawyer argued in court that all the evidence was circumstantial, with no direct link to them, and that Jermaine was falsely implicating them to reduce his own sentence. However, the evidence presented in court was solid and so well documented that no one could deny Bob and Jones' involvement in the robbery. During the hearing, the victims' families gave statements that, after this incident, they were deeply shocked, and it was an unforgettable experience that would haunt them forever. Finally, based on the guns, footprints, CCTV footage, and Jermaine's testimony, the court found Bob and Jones guilty and sentenced them to life, imprisonment for murder and armed robbery. Although the people killed in this robbery did get justice, their families could never forget the wounds. Seeing the emotional trauma of the victims' families, a judge also ordered that the two thieves could never be released on bail.